Hello and welcome to the Kyrus Friends podcast, where I sit down with the people that matter to me the most, and those people are my friends. We sit, we chat, and we tell our stories. Before we get to my interview with Valerie Campbell, please be sure to follow me on your favorite social media platforms at The Vibe with Ky, or visit my official website at thevibewithky.com, where I'm always posting things that'll help you do good, feel good, be good, and live a good life full of good vibes. My guest today is Valerie Campbell. I'm so excited to have her here today. A costumer for film and TV productions, known particularly for her work on Gilmore Girls, which we're going to talk about. I think people that are listening may know that I have a little obsession with Gilmore Girls. That's me. But she has also developed more than 130 ice cream flavors over the last 20 years, which is awesome. Today, we're going to be talking all about ice cream and Gilmore Girls, two of my favorite things in the world. Valerie, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm really appreciative of being on here and seeing you and finally getting to meet you. I've seen your TikToks and they keep popping up in my feed because I'm friends with a lot of Gilmore fans and they like to post that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. So for those of you that don't know, I honestly had no idea what the Gilmore Girls was about. When I was growing up, this show came out, I think in 2000, 2001, like around that time.
Yeah.
And at the time I was in middle school, about to start high school. And a lot of my friends watched the show. But I had no idea. It wasn't something that people in my neighborhood watched at all.
Yeah.
And so I never had like any sort of connection to it. And then flash forward to 2020, when we're in the panini, I call it. And my roommate is watching Gilmore Girls, and she's singing the opening song, which I had never heard in my entire 33 years of existence. I had never heard the song, but apparently it's an iconic song. So she's singing it, and so I filmed her singing the song, and I put it up on TikTok, and it goes viral. And I'm like, what is happening right now? And so I make another one making fun of the fact that this was viral, and that went viral. And I'm like, okay, hold on, something's going on. So people were like, you should just watch the show. And I was like, okay, I'll watch it, but I'm going to document the entire process. And that's where we are now. I just finished season 4, about to start season 5. I'm excited. So I'm sitting here with Valerie Campbell, who is the what was your official title on the show?
I was the key set costumer. And so I didn't design the show, but what I did was I took care of all the actors. I made sure they were in the right clothes at the right time, according to whatever the costume designer picked out. And I would read the scripts, work out the continuity, and basically follow the clothes from the time they were established when the designer set them to the end of the actors wearing it and making sure that they got wrapped. And then during the revival, the reboot, I was the costume supervisor, taking care of the budgets, handling the crew, making sure all the continuity was good, and just basic everything that happens in the department, everything but designing the clothes. That was Brenda Maven, who's the costume designer.
Right. So I have to ask, because season 4 Lorelai is probably my favorite Lorelai that I've ever seen so far. And I feel like her costumes, her wardrobe, and hair in that season was just top notch. Was there something about season 4 that was different than the previous seasons that they decided to just like take it to another level?
I don't necessarily think that I can answer the question as fully, but I think it was we had more money. Frankly, we had more money.
That's fair.
I think Lauren demanded more by, wanting to wear certain clothes. And it was a lot of it reflected her style and what was available in the stores at the time. But I remember we had a costumer that just took care of Lauren. And because it was a challenge, because she was in so much of the show and she had a lot of costume changes. We would have at least 6 or 7 costume changes per episode just for her. Whereas most characters might have 1 outfit or 2 outfits or 3. And she had a lot of lines, and she would use her lines on the show when she would, she'd have to remember 10 pages or 14 pages of dialogue in one day. And a lot of times she'd come to work not knowing what those words were until she got there. And part of the reason was we got our scripts late. So she kind of got into these habits. And so she would use learning her lines, and then she would use the clothes as a way to buy time. So she'd be like, oh, I don't really like this top. So we'd end up having to buy so many racks and racks of clothes just to figure out something to put on her. And she really did enjoy wearing clothes. So she'd pick out lots of great things.
Yeah, she looked like she enjoyed, I felt like I said, I'm only up to season 4, but season 4 seemed to have just a different vibe for her. She had I guess this swag, I guess, at this point, because I guess the show had really hit its stride at this point in regards to the ratings and the reviews and the writing, just all of it. I guess that's what I often hear, that season 4 and 5 were the seasons that the show really hit its stride. And I was always curious if there was if you felt that as you were working on the show during that time period. I guess at this point it's 2004, 2005, 2006, around that time. Was there a different just overall feel while the show was really hitting its stride during that time?
I would probably. I mean, I never really thought about it that way, but also it could be her character just bought the inn, right? Was she not?
Yeah. At the end of season 4, her inn, Dragonfly, had just opened. Yeah.
So, I mean, it might also, the character development in that direction probably, she could afford it a little bit more. Maybe not necessarily afford it at that point. But none of the clothes that Lorelai wore, Lorelai would ever have been able to afford. Let's just be honest.
I think that's a common question that people ask about the show is, how the heck can Lorelai afford all of this stuff? From food to the clothes and stuff like that. I know she's a thrifter, if I'm not mistaken. I believe she likes to thrift or something, or she likes to buy, or she just has a lot of clothes. Yeah, just right. Yeah, she can. Yes, that's true. That's all. I was always curious, when you first started working on the show, did you know how popular it was going to be, or was it just let's just see what happens?
I started the show first season, and I want to say, I think I get this one wrong all the time, but it's either episode 10 or episode 11, and I had no idea what the show was. My friend Brenda, who at the time was supervising the show, she later went on to design the show. I think she started designing it season 4, which, ding ding, that might be why.
There you go. We just got our answer.
Might be why her style evolved and became a little bit better. No, it actually, I think, had a lot more to do with probably the money that we had in our budget for her. But so Brenda had called me and said, hey, I'm working on this show, Gilmore Girls. And I could have sworn she said Gibson Girls. Now, Gibson Girl is a terminology from the turn of the century, not this turn of the century, but 1900s.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I'm working on a period film. Okay, cool. And I'm reading the TV guide or something. And I think they had just aired the episode where Rory went with Richard to go golf. And I was what does this have to do with the Gibson Girls? This is weird. Okay, I get the set. It's all modern. And the only qualifications that they were you have to get along with Alexis. That is your number one thing. And I'm like, okay. And so Alexis and I became really good friends. And that was easy. She was just such a sweetheart. And
she seems down to earth. She seems incredibly down to earth and humble and just sweet. I mean, I obviously don't know her personally, but that's the feel that I get from seeing her in interviews. And I watch her on Handmaid's Tale, which I love, and she just seems to be such a nice, humble person.
So down to earth. And we've lost contact over the last couple years, but randomly throughout the years since Gilmore has passed, I would run into her. I was on the lot after Gilmore Girls was up, and she was working on ER, and I went and knocked on her trailer and
Mm.
surprised her, and we hung out for the day. And then
Oh, nice.
randomly I was working on Mad Men, and I walked
Yeah.
through the lobby, and I was day playing, so which meant I'd come on, work a day, and then go on something else, work another day somewhere else. And I walked through the lobby, and I see her, and I'm like, Alexis, what are you doing here? And she's like, and I go, I'm working on Mad Men. She's like, oh, okay. And then she could tell me, because she was under contract not to say anything, that she was working on the show. And so it was kind of nice, because I was her little confident, the only person that she knew that she could tell that she was working on Mad Men at that time. And and then, you know, throughout the years, she's just such a sweetheart, and I really love her.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool to hear those types of stories, because like there's obviously so much sometimes like just gossip and just stuff that like people don't know, right? Because so people will just tend to just put in what they think, and I feel like sometimes when it comes to celebrities, we just automatically think that most of them are divas and that they just, you know, require a lot and stuff like that. And whether it's true or not, it's really nice to hear stories about these, you know, big name, really good actors and actresses that are just humble, that are just down to earth and kind and human beings.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, as a crew member, you get to see the side of them as just being a regular person, because they don't have to act a certain way. They don't have to be putting on a show. You know, they're just people. And it's weird to think about all the people I've met in my entire life, because I've met some really interesting ones, but you know, for the most part, they're just human beings and normal.
That's fair. That's fair. Outside of you know Lorelai and outside of I guess Lauren and Laura and Alexis, what other actors or actresses on the set did you have really cool experiences with on set?
I mean, all of them. The character Lulu, who plays Kirk's girlfriend. Have we met her yet in the series? Okay.
Yes. I love her. I have a mild obsession with her. I'm in love with her.
Honoring. Oh, she's a sweetheart. She's one of my best friends, like one of my dear friends from the show, you know, and I'm really great friends with Keiko. And my husband and I were both extremely, my cat, by the way, she keeps like popping in.
She wants a little cameo.
Okay, go away. No. We were really good friends with Ed Herman. He is he was one of our closest friends from the show. And then, I mean, I'm going to say that about everyone. Oh, they were one of my closest friends. I became really good friends with a lot of them because, and this goes into the ice cream. So I started making ice cream a little bit before Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
My cat is obsessed with me. Possessed.
I love cat. I'm a cat person, so I appreciate it.
But so I started making ice cream right before Gilmore Girls, and I'd have these parties at my house, and they're little potluck parties. And I started inviting people from the show, and I keep in touch with all the actors and crew from the show, and for that matter, every show I'd ever worked on, And so that's how I was able to keep in touch with everybody, because I'd be sending out emails like once or twice a year, like, hey, we're having a party, please come if you'd like to come. And whoever comes first gets to pick their favorite ice cream. And so over the years, we really just became friends with all these people. Like I see Liz Torres, who plays Miss Patty, like all the time. Like I go visit her, and you know, I keep in touch with Kelly Bishop, the one that plays Emily.
I've always liked her because I'm a musical theater kid, and so I'm a chorus line fan. So
she's amazing.
So I've always been a fan of Kelly Bishop.
Amazing human being. I mean, just it's nice because I have these really wonderful relationships with them to this day, and it's the fun part is you'll be working on something and all of a sudden one of the actors from the show will come work. Like I worked on Suburbicon with George Clooney, and I just took care of the background.
I remember that. Yeah.
But the guy who played Tom has the guy that's doing all the construction on the Dragonfly Inn. Have you met him yet?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember his name offhand, but yes, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, his name is Biff Yeager, and Biff is one of those actors that has been in quite a few Clooney movies, and because they were doing a Clooney movie, they brought him back on, and so I was like, oh my God, it's Biff! How you doing? Like, and I've gotten a chance to work with Rose Abdoo again. I also have a really strange connection to Alex Borstein, who was the harp player. And I don't know if you've seen her other stuff, Miss Celine. Have you seen Miss Celine yet?
No, I haven't. But I think I read that I guess during the pilot, she was the original Suki, and then she had to drop out because of Mad TV. But I think she's on Miss Maisel right now, I guess.
Yeah.
Because she's working on that. Yeah.
Well, I went to this Gilmore Girls, the first, I want to say it was like the first Christmas party that Gilmore Girls had for the crew.
Okay.
And it was just at this bar, and Jackson, I say hi to Jackson, and he's like, oh, hi.
Yeah.
My wife thinks she knows you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I go, hi, my name's Valerie. And she goes, hi, my name's Alex. And she goes, I know you. And I'm like, huh. And so we go through literally like every single thing we had done in our career at that point. And it had been about 10 years since I was out of high school at that point. And I'm like, no, I didn't work on Family Guy. No, I didn't work on Mad TV. I'm like, I don't know. And then I asked her, I go, what high school did you go to? And she's like, Chatsworth. And I went, oh my God. She goes, I said, my drama teacher from high school left my high school and taught at your high school. And I said, I don't know you as Alex. I know you as Drea. Because her name is Alexandra. And in high school, all her friends called her Drea. And I was like, oh my God, of course I know you. And we did a play together, which was weird. After high school, I did a play with them, and I was just running the light board. And I had like a walk-on part where I said, I was like a waitress or something. I'm like, may I take your order? But it was funny to have these weird connections to people throughout the years, you know?
Right. That's really cool. And then the fact that you get to just carry those out throughout, the many projects that you get to work on and things like that. Are you still working on like projects like to this day?
Yeah. I'm kind of taking a little tiny break. One, I got my vaccine, so I just want to make sure that that gets so I'm fully protected. But yeah, I just worked on a pilot a couple weeks ago with what was her name, Quinta Brunson, and so I worked on a pilot for I can't remember who it's for, but worked on that. And I did last year I worked on, the year before I worked on Picard and Yes Day. And I did some reshoots, but what I like to do nowadays is I like to day check, which is I like to go in, work a day on some random project, and then go home and not think about it, which is the best thing in the world.
Right. Kind of takes some pressure off your shoulders a little bit, right?
It really does. Like for me now, like as long as I have enough hours with the union and I keep working, I'm fine. I don't need to stress
How do they contact you? So do they just shoot you an email and say, hey, we have this project for you next week. Can you come in? Is that pretty much how it works in a way?
Usually it's like a phone call from a friend who's working. Like I worked last week on, it's a Tyler Perry movie that they're shooting in Atlanta. And I just went and pulled some clothes, some 1940s clothes from a costume shop and then shipped them to them. So it's like a friend will call and go like, hey, Val, we really need your help. Like, I need somebody to help pull some clothes or we're doing a movie and we just need an extra hand on set. Can you come help? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And, I usually say yes. It just depends on whether or not I have something else going on.
Right. Yeah. Is it a small community? I know obviously it's a big industry, but would you say it's a small community? Like what you do specifically in the industry? Like, does everybody know everybody in a way?
There's in our union, the costumers union, not the designers, but the costumers, there's about 2,000 people. And I don't know all of them, but what's interesting is I started a Facebook page that is for union members in my local and in the costume designers local to help find people that will work one day. And so I started this page, and I'll walk onto a set that I don't know anybody on, and some of the costumers will be like, start crying when they find out my name, which is so wild because they're like, you helped me get my first union job with new people that I had never worked with before. And I'm like, oh my God, that's great. You know, like, I'm glad it's working. But they're like, oh my God, I met a celebrity. And I'm like, I'm just like a person, guys.
You know, it's funny you say that. Not that my career is anywhere like close to the amazing things that you've done, but like I've grown like this really like large, I guess, large-ish following on TikTok, right? So like somebody will shoot me like a DM sometimes, right? And it's really hard for me to respond to a lot of them because I just don't have the time. But like every now and then I'll like find like an hour or so and I'll just like go through DMs and I'll just respond. And like people will be like, oh, he responded. And I'm just me. I'm just like a normal guy from Philly. I'm just like a normal guy. I've never in my life put myself above anybody else. Like I'm just a normal person.
Yeah.
But like there are people that are like, oh my God, thank you so much for responding to me. This is so cool. And I'm like, I'm just me.
You made their life. I'm just gonna say you made their life. Like, so part of the reason I wrote my ice cream book was I started going to the Fan Fest in Connecticut. There's a Gilmore Girls related Fan Fest.
Yeah.
And so the first time I went, you know, I'm there and I'm like, you know I'm crew. I'm not the actors. I'm not in front of anything. And even in crew sense, I'm not like top of the line. I was there and I have a really great memory. So like I remember everything that happened when we were shooting. I mean, or at least what I think I remember, obviously. Not
Sure.
And so I remember going on the first Fan Fest and we're all like walking on the red carpet inside. And the fans were all out there like taking pictures of us walking on the carpet. And they would stop me and they'd be like, oh my God, can you sign this? And I was like, you want me to sign? Like, I mean, sure, I'll sign it. But like, you know that I was just like the costumer that worked on the show. You don't want my signature. And it's funny now. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Here you go.
Right. But I'm pretty sure that's a cool, like in a way, it's a cool just feeling, you know, just knowing that your work is appreciated.
Yeah.
And that and I wanted to ask you, like, what does it feel like? Like you worked, like this show has been around to like it's going on 21 years now that it's been around, and it's still going strong in regards to fandom. Like I'm a personal testament to that. You know, that people watch it over and over again, and it's being introduced to a new generation of people. How does it feel to know that the work that was done on that show still lives up to this day?
It's wild. You know, and I think part of the reason is I'm tiny bit hoarder, but not really. I'm more of like a collector of items and I collect things and not necessarily movie memorabilia, but I'll end up with random pieces of paper, scraps, things, mementos from the show. And I'll be like, one of these days I'll be like, oh, I should just get rid of this. I should just give this to someone. Someone will appreciate it. I'm tired of this cluttering up my life. And then I'll realize, well, no, it still means something to the fans. I can't just throw it away. I can't you know, it's weird. Like at a certain point in time, I just want to get rid of these memories. And then I'm like, no, I got to keep holding on to them because someone might have a question.
You never know. You never know. What's the most common question that you get from people that know that you worked on the show?
Oh, it's so hard. It's such a full range. And for me, just random things will come out. Like I will ask them, like, what's your favorite episode so far? Like Ky, what's your favorite episode so far that you've seen?
Okay, so I have three that I put on the same level. One is, I can't remember the name of the episode, but it's the episode, and I guess it's the first or second season, where Richard goes to the hospital because I think he had like angina or something like that. Okay. And I like that episode because there was a lot, like that episode had a lot of scenes that we saw people talking to other people for the first time. Like it was the first time we saw Emily talking to Luke, like and like stuff like that. Like it was really cool. So that one. In season 3, there's an episode called "Dear Richard and Emily," where there's some flashback episode, like our flashback
where they go to the hospital
Lorelai.
Again?
So I think Lorelai, and it's like a flashback to Lorelai and Chris, like when they were teenagers.
Okay.
So that's number 2, and number 3 is in this most recent season. It was the penultimate episode of this season. Like not the final episode, but the episode.
The wedding.
Yeah.
Renaissance.
I just really like that entire.
Okay.
Vibe
I'll share a couple memories from those 3 episodes.
Yeah, please.
The first one that you mentioned was Emily and Richard in the hospital, and I have a memory, and I don't know if it's that episode or one of the other hospital episodes, because there's a few where they go to a hospital. Right. But one of our PAs, his name was Danny Giles. Danny Giles liked to play. I mean, a lot of people like to play jokes, but this was kind of a practical joke. Was there a scene where Rory was on the phone in a hallway in that episode? Probably. Okay.
Probably.
And she says something like, and it could totally be a different episode. It could be in the Sherry baby when somebody else. I don't want to spoil it. But it might have been another episode.
I remember, yeah.
Okay, so Rory's on the phone, and she mentions something about people in hospital gowns and their butts are hanging out.
Yeah.
And so Danny Giles, who's our PA, got dressed up in a hospital gown, butt naked, and walked through the shot, but walked this way. So camera's looking this way. Alexis is here, and Danny Giles walks this way. So all Alexis saw was his bare butt.
That's hilarious. How many takes did that? How did she get it right? Did she get it on the first take?
He just did it for a shot. I mean, it was just like he just did it as like a practical joke, and it might have been like, "Hey, director, did we get this perfect? Okay, now we got it perfect. Can we do a fake shot where they do it?" They wouldn't have done it on the first shot because they don't want to mess anything up.
Sure. Right.
And then, okay, what was the second episode? Oh, the one with the flashback with the kids. Oh my God. We loved working on that episode. Those actors were so good. And it was so sweet to see them like young. And it was like,
right.
You could do a whole series of them, like the pre-Gilmore Girls years of like, wouldn't that be kind of cool?
I was going to ask, because I heard there was a rumor that they were considering that. Was that ever something that was ever considered?
I don't think so. I think that, I think a lot of people create rumors just so that they can see if they can manifest it. It's like,
right.
Oh man, Amy and Dan have enough on their plate. Like, really?
Right.
They're going to make another season.
The only spinoff that was actually really in consideration was the Jess one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. And that one was fun. Oh, you haven't done that yet, right? That's
No, I saw it. I saw that episode when he's in LA.
Oh, okay. That one has a little tidbit to the crew. So there's these 3 characters, Chuck, Tree, Bob. They play skaters.
Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Our original prop department on set was this guy. It was Chuck, Tree, Bob. And so Chuck and Bob were prop guys, and Tree was our Tree was our set dresser. And so Tree is a nickname. His name's David. So they would always call out on set whenever they need a prop, Chuck, Tree, Bob, Chuck, Tree, Bob, Chuck, Tree, Bob. And so it became this kind of funny thing that, and Amy, whenever Amy's looking for things, she'll pull from the environment. And that was one. One thing that they pulled from the environment was this joke that would happen on set whenever they'd say Truck, Tree, Bob. So they put him in the script. And then let's go to the Renaissance Fair episode, last week's fights.
Last week's fights, yeah, this week's fights, yeah.
Man, that was a fun episode because the guy that plays TJ's brother in real life is actually Michael's brother in real life.
Right. I think I did, yeah, people were saying that, yeah.
And Michael's another person who I'm friends with, but I also have a weird connection to. So when I was in high school, I was in drama, and we'd go to these festivals, and it was before, I think I was a freshman, and I was a room chair, so I'd call time on the scenes. And I finished my time on the scenes, and I was just observing in this one room. And so there's timekeepers. After 5 or 10 minutes, they would call time. And this particular scene was a 10-minute scene. And the first people that went up was a scene with Michael DeLuise. Michael DeLuise was in high school. He was a senior in high school. And it was Merry Wives of Windsor. And they went and they were doing their scene, and it was hysterical. They called time 5 minutes in, and it was a 10-minute scene. And the group was like, huh? Like, we're not even halfway done. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, what's going on? So they let them perform at the end. And then they ended up winning first place because they were really, really amazing.
They were great.
And so Michael DeLuise, the first day he ever worked on our show, walks in, and I was so excited because I was like, I saw you senior year, Merry Wives of Windsor, Shakespeare Festival, when you were in first place. And I was in that room when they called time, and he went, it is so nice to meet you. I do not remember this at all.
Oh my God. There's thing in your brain that just stands out. Like that, you were just like, I remember this. I remember every detail of that day. And he was like, oh, I was there? Oh, that's cool.
But you know what? We are still friends to this day. Because of it. Like, I don't know. I mean, no, I don't know if it's because of that. But what's funny is a few years after Gilmore Girls, Michael and I went, Michael called me one day and he's like, hey, you want to go to Renaissance Fair? And I was like, sure. So we went to Renaissance Fair. And I kind of had forgotten the connection to Gilmore Girls and Renaissance Fair. And so we were just having a great day walking around, and he's really into artists, and he loves like supporting the arts and doing, quirky, funny things. And we're leaving the fair. We're finally like, okay, we're leaving. And he gets spotted by some Gilmore fan. And so this Gilmore fan comes up and is like, hi, oh my God, Michael, blah, 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 completely ignoring me, which is fine. I don't care. I'm not, I didn't get into this business to get into the limelight. He's ignoring me, and I mean, they're ignoring me. And Michael just totally goes, my friend Valerie, she also worked on Gilmore Girls, and totally like deflected it. So
wow, just like, here you go. You handle this, please.
But it was very sweet. And it was kind of funny because like, I was like, oh yes, oh my God, Renaissance Fair, Michael, TJ. Yes, of course. But it was really sweet. I mean,
it's really funny. It's really funny you say that, because if there's one thing that I've realized about the Gilmore Girl fandom, which, mind you, has accepted me with open arms into their world, because, like I said, I was not a part of this world this time last year. I had no idea, like, whatever. And they remember every single detail about every single episode ever, because they watch it, they rewatch it over and over and over again. And it makes me laugh because, like, I've always been curious, like, the people that worked on this show, like, do you remember things in as much, like, detail as much as the fandom does? Like when they come up to you and they're like, hey, I remember when this happened. You're like, oh yeah, I guess that did happen.
My job is very specific to detail. I mean, my job literally is, if you were in this scene right now, I would have to make sure your hat is exactly placed on your head that way, and that the ear bob is, maybe not the ear bob because that would be props, but if it were an earring, that you'd have that ear bob in.
Right.
And that your shirt, see how your shirt is creased a specific way? If you got up and went to the bathroom and we shot the wider shot, I'd have to, or the closer up shot, I'd have to make sure to match the crease on your shirt.
Wow.
And if we could see any more of your clothes, I would make sure that those elements matched as well, like whether you were tucked in or
Right.
not tucked in. So I remember details, and I have a really, really good memory, and it is probably very unique. I don't think everybody does. But there are some people, we all remember things that mattered to us. And there are moments that happened on set that sometimes I don't remember, which is funny. I have a photograph. I have a lot of photographs from the show. They're continuity photos. Right. And we archived them. And so we held on to them, which made a lot of sense when we did the reboot. It was a lot easier to put together the reboot. But where I'm going with this is those help me remember. But a few years ago, one of the stand-ins had taken a photograph of me on set, and she sent it to me. And I had no memory of this photograph. But what's crazy is the photograph. Sally Struthers, it was the very last episode of the very last season. Sally Struthers would pick people up and hoist them on their shoulder and then spin them around.
Oh my God.
And she did that to me. And someone took a photograph of it. And I totally forgot about it. I had no memory of it at all.
Right.
Until someone showed me the photo, and I'm like, oh, I guess I do remember that happening. But it's funny how you can forget things. But yeah, I do remember quite a bit though.
Right. What I want to do, I want to say a Gilmore Girls character name. This is a little game.
Yeah.
And I just want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind about either that character or the actor or actress that played that character.
Okay.
Just the first thing that comes to your head.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. All right. Tristan.
Oh. He was kind of, I don't know, he was a little full of himself.
Mr. Chad Michael Murray we're speaking of here. Yeah.
He was such a flirt.
One Tree Hill, right?
Flirting on set but yeah, and I was like, dude, you're 10 years younger than me. No.
Did he shoot his shot with you too?
Me, but he would just be flirting all the time, and I was like, okay,
that's hilarious.
Calm down.
That's hilarious. Kirk.
Oh man, so many jobs, but I loved Kirk, man.
Right?
My favorite. He'd kill me, but I remember when he was in the hot dog outfit. Oh, was this before or after your time? Have you seen it? I have
no idea. I don't think I've seen it yet, but it's okay. It's okay. It's not spoiling.
Okay, well, he's in this hot dog outfit. And of course I have to help, I had to help him with all his outfits because most of them were very, very elaborate. And he's in this hot dog outfit, and I had I was one of the few people on set that had digital camera, and my camera could take little short videos. And I went up to him and I was like, hey, Sean, sing the Oscar Mayer Wiener song. And he's like, I'm not going to sing that. But I really wanted him to say, I wish I were an Oscar
Mayer Wiener. Yes. Emily Gilmore.
Oh, Emily, gosh. Well, this is more of my husband collects radios. This is more of a personal thing. My husband collects radios, and she gave us this very old vintage radio that belonged to her grandmother, or her mother or grandmother.
Oh wow!
And because she wanted to make sure it didn't just go in a trash bin or somewhere, and so
right.
She gave it to us, and her grandmother would or I think it must have been her mother would listen to the fights on this radio.
Right, sure. Oh, I love that. Richard Gilmore.
Oh, Ed. Oh man, so many memories. Ed, God, where do I start? He would just drop by out of the blue randomly, whenever he was in town, and knock on our door. And he came to one of our parties in Echo Park. And it was right when my husband and I first got together. It was right before we were getting married. And he walked, and we had two sides of a duplex, or one duplex, two sides. And so my husband's side of the duplex was filled with radios, microphones, old sound equipment,
Mm-hmm.
antiques. And mine was filled with antiques, but just a different kind. And he walked in and he got through to the back bedroom, and there's a train that Ed had as a little boy. It was this little American Flyer. And the next thing I know, my husband or future husband has given him this train, and Ed's walking around with it going, I had this when I was a little boy and your husband just gave it to me. And then Ed in his basement, after he went back home, created an entire train room because of that train.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And when we went to Connecticut a few years ago after Ed had passed for the Fan Fest, we went down into the basement and got to see it, which was kind of cool.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's awesome. Miss Patty.
Liz. Oh, man. From a clothing standpoint, she would always have these really cool wraps and fun things. But my favorite story of her though was she was working on West Wing, I think it was West Wing. So she was supposed to be at the White House, and she went for her costume fitting, and they had this black top with dragonflies on it. It was like a silk citron top, I think. And she says, honey, I can't wear this. I just wore this in Stars Hollow last week.
I love her. Oh my God, that's fantastic. Oh my God. Max Medina.
You know, I don't have as many great memories, but Max Medina, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, not Max Medina, but the actor that played him.
Yeah.
It was Michael Cohen, I think.
I think so. Yeah, something like that.
When 9/11 had Scott Cohen. Yeah.
Scott Cohen, I think so. If only there were a device and used to look this stuff up. Yeah.
So we were 9/11 had hit. He was out in LA for our episode that we were shooting that week and got stuck because there were no flights back to New York. And so I just remember him being stuck with us, and Warner Brothers at the gazebo had erected this giant American flag that was right behind, and did an entire memorial in Stars Hollow for 9/11 for the entire lot. It was pretty amazing. And I just remember Scott Cohen was there because he, like I said, he was stuck.
Right.
It's a weird memory.
I forgot that this show premiered in 2000, and then I guess
99.
And then in 99, so like, and then you had to go through dealing with 9/11 just behind the scenes, because obviously it wasn't like I don't think it was ever mentioned during the show, which is probably a good thing to help people escape. So I keep forgetting that. Michelle.
Oh, every day I would have to help him tie his tie because he did not know. He did not know at the very beginning how to tie a tie. And I mean, when I say the beginning, I mean several years. It wasn't like till the very end that I think he finally figured out how to tie a tie. And so he would come in, and because he's French Canadian, and French really is his formal language, he would get caught up with certain words. And so he would always come into the trailer when he was running his lines, and like we'd help him with his tie. And he would be like, what is this word? How do I say this? And I mean, now obviously
French is like his actual language.
Yeah. He's French Canadian. So that's how he would, he didn't have as good of an understanding with everything.
Right.
And so we would help him tie his tie, but also help him figure out what a word meant,
Right. Dave Rogalski.
Dave Rogalski. Well, I actually don't think of the character. I think of the real person, Dave Rogalski. So
Same.
Dave Rogalski is
I didn't even know he was in the show.
You didn't know
whose husband?
Dave Rogalski is Helen Pye's husband. Now, Helen Pye is Amy's best friend, who was our producer. She actually was the one that produced like all the music. She started out as Amy's assistant, and then slowly ended up becoming one of the producers. And Dave Rogalski is a musician in real life, and he used to work for The Tonight Show with Jay Leno when it was out here. So he would produce music segments, but he also was in bands. And you will see him on the show, but you're not going to see him until the very last episode, either very last episode or the episode before the last episode of season 6. So
got it.
But you're going to see him for a quick second.
For a little second.
But he also played he and a few of the band guys would play, would be like playing for the musicians whenever they did.
I see. Right. Got it. Digger, aka Jason.
Well, Digger's cool. Jason's cool. I'm still friends with him today. He actually bought my book. He supported my Kickstarter. Oh, nice. And so when I went to New York the first year I had my book, I went and hung out with him in Brooklyn and gave him the book. But he's a sweetheart. He's a director, Does a bunch of other stuff too. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, good for him. Mrs. Kim.
Emily. Oh man. Oh gosh. She loves computers. She's a
really
total techie. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
But she's awesome. She's going to be, I'm revising, I'm doing new recipes for the next book, and she's going to be in the next one. And her recipe is going to be a mochi matcha.
Mochi matcha.
It's a mochi matcha swirl. So basically it's not like little mochi balls. It's matcha, green tea, matcha, and mochi ice cream swirled together. So when you scoop it out, you'll have a little bit of each element of it. And it's good.
Fine. Twist my arm. I guess I'll have it. I guess I'll give it a shot. Fine. Taylor.
Oh, Michael. Oh gosh, so many. His sweaters, obviously. But his ice cream outfit. Oh my God, his ice cream outfit.
I always loved his ice cream. Whenever he's in the shop, it always reminds me of the Music Man, the barbershop quartet. The Music Man.
Which that the Music Man was shot at Warner Brothers.
The same lot, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He's awesome. Michael's great. I did a little Zoom interview for him over pandemic because for the Fan Fest, and so have a little nice. I got to spend some quality time with him recently, which was nice.
Yeah,
on that.
Nice.
Jackson. Well, I think I already told you my story, which is his wife.
Right.
Stuff, but
his wife, yeah.
Oh wait. I
can
give you one. Jackson Douglas. When they did, have you seen the episode with Deep Fried Shoe? Turkey Thanksgiving episode?
Yes, I do. Okay. I do remember that episode. Yes.
So every time we would see Jackson on set after that episode, we'd all yell, "Jackson!" like the way they would do it in the Deep Fried Shoe. Right. And so, but when we did the barbershop quartet episode, Jackson and Fred Savage. Do you know who Fred Savage is from Wonder Years?
Of course.
Okay, so Jackson and Fred Savage were both observing Amy to direct. They wanted to direct an episode. And so Fred Savage would come in, he'd swing in maybe about 9:00 and maybe stay till about 3. Well, Jackson, and this was the episode of the Barbershop Quartet, which was one of our longest days of shooting, came in at the very beginning of the day. Like if we had a 7:00 crew call, that's when he came in.
Right.
And I think we shot like a 22-hour day that day. And it was in the middle of the night. Yeah, we shot some long hours. I don't know if you knew that.
Wow.
And so it was the middle of the day, middle of the morning, like maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning at this point. I don't know if that works out time-wise, and we're like, "Jackson, why are you still here?" And I said to him, I go, "Jackson, where's Fred Savage?" Because Fred had left hours ago. And guess who got to direct an episode of Gilmore Girls? Not Fred Savage.
I was going to go on a limb. Yeah, I was about to say it's Jackson.
Jackson did.
That's awesome. Logan. I have not met Logan yet, the character of Logan, but everybody talks about him.
He's Logan? A sweet. I mean, I can only speak to Matt Zuckery is a sweetheart, really just very, very, very sweet. But this is a continuity mistake I had. And I don't know if it actually ended up on camera or not. And I don't even remember the episode. But I remember I never really had to worry about Matt because he was just perfect. But there was one time where his jacket, like his blazer jacket, was buttoned and then it wasn't. And we were shooting and I was like, oh my God, was that supposed to be buttoned? Was that? And it was like one of those days we'd shot a 19-hour day. And I'm like, I look over at him and I'm like, I don't remember if your jacket's supposed to be buttoned or not buttoned. And that's my job. And I went, and so I don't know. I don't know what happened. I to this day, like, sometimes you don't want to know. I'm sure one of the fans will be like, there it is, that's the scene.
Oh, no. I'm pretty, so I'm going to be listening to this right now and be like, oh, I remember that scene. And point it out.
Yeah. Jess? Well, first, Milo smells like hugs whenever you give him a hug. He just smells like so nice.
Oh, I love that.
One thing that Milo would do to mess with me all the time would be, you know, those like when you're wearing a hoodie and you got the strings on the hoodie.
Yes.
I would always go up to him and try to either one, take them off so I didn't have to worry about the string ties not matching.
Right.
And he was like, no, don't touch my hoodie strings. Don't touch them. Don't touch them. And I'm like, okay, Milo, I won't touch them. And I said, but you have to be good. And so he would have them where they were supposed to be. And then right before the shot, he would like tug them to mess with me. He'd always make sure they were perfect. He actually would always make sure his continuity was perfect, but he loved to mess with me, you know.
That's hilarious. Dean,
oh, okay. So I think it was between first season and second season. I don't know if you noticed. It's the scene where it's from the Daisy scene and Rory and Lorelai are running towards each other, that episode. We see Dean in that episode, but then the very next episode, which is supposed to be literally the next day, the next season, it's the next day.
Right.
Dean comes in for his fitting before we started shooting. And, you know, Dean was like here, right? He was like here on me. And he comes in and he is like here. And we're like, do you know that the scene we're going to shoot is literally the next day? How are you going to match?
Oh, no.
It was crazy. I don't know if it's noticeable, but yeah, he was.
I personally didn't notice, to be honest. But I also figured, I mean, at the time, these kids were probably like 16, 17 years old. And so they were, I figured, even if I did notice, I'd be like, okay. Yeah. But I figured, like, even if I did notice, I wouldn't care. Because I'm like, it's like watching the Harry Potter film, right? It's just like, I get it. They're getting older. Like, they're adults now. Suki.
Melissa. Okay, this is like off, not having to do with the show at all. But so she does Groundlings, or she did at the time. She would do all these fun, crazy characters. And she invited whoever wanted to go see her in Groundlings. So I went to go Groundlings. And they put me like front row in the audience. And one of the performers was up, and it might have even been her husband. I think it was her husband, was doing this. The skit was how to not get abducted by a serial killer.
Okay.
And I was totally overthinking it and not being a very good audience member.
Oh my gosh.
And so they asked me, they're like, hey, where are you from? And I was like, I'm not going to answer that. like your whole skit. And they were like, you need to answer the question. Because I'm sure what the joke was, well, don't tell people where you're from. Why can I tell them?
Oh my gosh.
And so for years they were like Valerie. Oh, Melissa never let me let that down. But she would call me. She had a nickname for me. Her nickname for me was MacGyver. And so she would call me MacGyver.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
Then later, some other friends on set started calling me Valguyver.
Val Guy. Oh, I like that one. I like that.
Val Guyver ended up winning, but
Yeah, I think I like that one the best. I think I do. Lane.
Oh, well, so many great memories with Lane, but let's see. The one that kind of comes to mind is there was an episode, I don't think Rory's still going to Chilton now, right?
No, Rory just finished her first year at Yale.
Has Lane gone to visit her at Yale yet?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That episode, and this wasn't my fault, but it was something I could have noticed. Props gives her glasses to wear. Those glasses, they technically are her glasses that she brought in at the very beginning of the seasons when she first started working, but then became part of her character. And so Prop would give her the glasses. And they forgot, it was the very first day back from like Christmas hiatus that we shot that scene.
Right.
And we shot a good entire scene before, and I think I might have been the one to realize, like, hey, why aren't you wearing your glasses? And so she didn't have her glasses on. So they ended up having to go back and shoot that scene again. Yeah. And the director, and this what doesn't have to do with the director. It was really Prop's fault. Like, I'm not going to lie, but any one of us could have noticed, and none of us noticed. You were just so hey, we're back.
Right. And was it with Alexis? Did Alexis say anything? Was she like, something was off?
No, I want to say it was the scene with Liza and her in.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I'm not saying like, I guess, I mean, Liza and her never were really in scenes together, so maybe that could have added to it.
Which is really interesting, by the way, because seeing how they both have a close relationship with Rory, I'm surprised that those two, at least so far, haven't really had any moments together, which I find really, really interesting.
You know what? Let's go to that point of not having scenes together. For me, I know all these actors very intimately. I'm sometimes helping them get dressed, and and when we go to the Fan Fest, we'll bring in new actors, will come in, and I'm the one thing that is constant. I mean, there's a few of us that go as well, but I'm the one thing that's constant for them. And they're like, I know Valerie, but I don't know anybody else. Or I don't even know this other actor. But it's always funny how, like, you're like, oh, you guys don't know each other? Like, I mean, I guess that happens in your own real life when your friends meet.
Right. It's just really weird because they're both such prominent actors on the show. And I guess that since we're talking about it, let's just say Paris.
Oh man, Liza. Remember how I said we had really long days on set? Sometimes, a couple times we had a 22-hour day. Our average was about 14 to 16. No, our average was about 16, and 14 was kind of like normal long, but not really that long. Liza came on one day, and we shot all her scenes. And it was a Liza heavy day because maybe the girls had finally gotten to the point in their contracts where they're like, listen, I'm not working every single day, or I have something else I have to do. And so they were able to get out of work. And so they scheduled a day of just Liza stuff. We got out of there like in 10 hours.
Oh wow!
And that's we can't go home early.
That's it's funny you say that because I actually read I read a story about when Quentin Tarantino directed an episode of ER, and he directed an episode of ER, and they said that he did the entire episode. He filmed everything in one take. And they rehearsed and he did all in one take. And they asked him why. And they said because he didn't want to give the studio options to choose about what versions of scenes to choose from. He's like, I'm just going to do one. I'm going to film one take, and that's it.
Now, are you saying that he shot the whole episode in one take, or just every scene that he shot, he only did one take?
He did. I'm sorry. He did one. No, I'm sorry. It wasn't one of those continuous shots. No,
Okay.
he did each scene. He did each scene in one, like just one take of each scene, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
which I thought was like really interesting. I'm like, wow, don't even give the studio a choice. Just like, listen, this is the footage we got. So this is what we're going for.
We had the opposite. We would have to shoot most normal shows. You do one, and then you get a safety, which is your number 2 shot. And on our show, we would do 3 safeties. We make sure we had 3 good shots in the can. And sometimes we would shoot, I don't know. There was this one director, Jamie Babbitt. I think she got the record of like 36 takes of a oneer. Wow. You know how we do those long oneers through Stars Hollow with the Steadicam? 36
Those are my favorite types of shots.
Of a guy walking backwards with like a whole crew of people like protecting him, making sure that he didn't trip. And then sometimes he would get into a crane and then be like lifted up in the air. That guy, that was Steve Clancy, and he was our Steadicam guy, and also did second camera and first camera. But he ended up directing, I think he at least directed 2 episodes of Gilmore, if I'm not mistaken. And the one episode that he directed was that Lane one.
Right. I'm a big fan of long takes like that. Those are probably tracking shots are some of my favorite shots in the world. I love them. Luke.
Well, his plaid shirts, the plaid shirts. Oh no, you know what? The baseball hat.
Yeah.
And when I first started, we had 2 baseball hats, and
like the same type of blue hat.
Yeah, and we lost one, so we were down to one baseball hat, and so I was freaking out, going like, "We need to get another hat. Can we just not get another hat?" Like it wasn't that complicated, but apparently they had stopped making that specific cut, that specific style, which doesn't make sense because you see it all the time now. I mean, it's the robe with the green underneath. Like, how hard is that? So I ended up having to contact some company. We found fabric and we made like 10 of them. And I can't remember what season it was. And so that was like, it was such a lot of work, man. I just remember
oh my God,
going like, "Where's your baseball cap? Where's your baseball cap?" Like
the hat is iconic. That's how people love. I remember watching the episode where Lorelai gives him the hat that he's known for now, and people were like, "This is the moment that he gets the hat," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to assume that this is a very important moment." They're like, "That's the hat." I'm like, "Okay, cool." That's awesome. But like, now I see why it's iconic.
I've never seen that episode.
Oh, really? Yeah. This was like, I guess, like middle of season 1, I guess, like somewhere around there where he gets like the hat from Lorelai as a gift. Yeah. And
I mean, I've heard about it.
This is a fun moment.
I've heard about it. I've not really seen the episodes. Actually, I've not really seen the episodes. I've seen some, but I didn't start until episode 10 of 11. And back at that time, there was no VCR. I mean, there was VCRs, but unless you were recording it, you didn't have it.
Right.
And then I just never bothered. And for me, like, I read every single script. And then I was on set for hours and hours. I mean, 36 takes sometimes listening to the same dialogue. And that was only one angle. Like, then we'd have to shoot the other 10 angles, So I remember a lot of stuff there. Every once in a while I'll watch an episode, but not often. And I'll watch it to kind of recap, like, oh, what happened? Oh, okay. Someone will have a question and I'll be like, oh, okay. But it's interesting.
Yeah, I find that interesting because I know Scott right now, he just started his own podcast where he said the only episodes of the show he has watched up until this point was the pilot and one or two of the episodes of the reboot, and that's it. He said he had never watched a single episode of the show. So he's documenting himself watching the show for the first time, which I find, like, I guess it makes sense. Like, when you're working on something for so long and so much, and that's your day, like, a legit, you're just there all day. I guess I could see why, like, you wouldn't necessarily watch it when you got home that night.
I gotta say, when I watch an episode, I don't I'm not looking at the episode. I'm looking at the oh God, I remember when so-and-so did this on set, or this happened or that happened. And I get distracted by it. I don't get to enjoy it as much. Or maybe some of the true personalities of some of the people that I worked with come out, and I remember something that happened that day, or it's hard, but or I'll see some continuity mistake I made, and I'm like, oh no.
You're like, oh no, why did I do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Rory.
Oh man.
I know you kind of talked about her a little before, and we talked a little bit about how grounded and humble she is.
Yeah, she's just such a she's a very shy, introverted person in real life, and just so private that a lot of times she'll come off as being aloof, but in reality, she's just the sweetest human being. She really is. If you're able to get to know her as a person and remove yourself from the character and just treat her like a person if you ever meet her,
Right. Absolutely. I plan on it. I told you, there's a chance that I might be moving out to LA. I'm going to take over. The plan is to bring this Philly boy to LA and to take over the town. People are like, who is this man? I'm like, you know who I am, damn it. You know who I am.
Well, LA's great. I love it.
Yeah, I love LA. I've been out there many times, and I've always had a great time, particularly in Manhattan Beach. That is my spot. I love Manhattan Beach. I love it. Lorelai.
Oh man, Lauren is just so smart. She is really, really, really smart, really talented, and she can memorize a 14-page dialogue within 3 or 4 takes. She has it. 3 or 4 takes. She has that whole thing down after maybe not ever having looked at it. She's got a photographic memory. And for the most part, it's mostly about how she's going to say it as opposed to necessarily flubbing the line. She really doesn't flub her lines.
Right.
She just really, but for her, and one of the things, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but my job and interaction with her or Alexis or any of the other actors was we would have to go up to them, and they were wearing crop tops with low-rise pants, and not necessarily crop tops, but they were wearing as long of a t-shirt as we could possibly get, and they didn't want to see skin. Whenever they bent over, they didn't want to see skin, because you're in Connecticut, and it's cold. You wouldn't be out there wearing clothes that had that. And so we would always have to tell them to pull their tops down. So if you ever see them and they're folding laundry and they're bending over, and then all of a sudden they give it a little tuck, that's because myself or Sesha would be watching the monitor, and we'd have to go hey, at this time you have to tuck, you have to literally pull your shirt down, because Amy didn't like to see that.
Is it because it was I guess not only just because it's in Connecticut, but is it because it was a family, they don't want to
you know what? It wasn't a family. It wasn't a family thing, but it really was. I gotta say, it really was, because most people are not that attractive with that cut. It's not the most attractive look. I think it's the downfall of 2000 fashion was this whole we need to see everyone's bellies, and so, but mostly it was because of the weather. And I'm not trying to say Lauren wasn't attractive, because she is. It just was the weather, the coldness, and Amy didn't want to see that. Amy wanted to see, Amy didn't want to be distracted by that. And then also to match, because if you did, if you moved one way, then the shirt, and we shot everything with super wide shots. So you would always be seeing the waist, or you would very rarely, we would never do a shot like this. It would always be waist or higher. So things had to match, and they wanted to make sure it didn't go up and down and up and down, because the scenes were so long. Yeah.
That makes sense. So one of the last things I wanted to ask you about in regards to Gilmore Girls is, so one of the common, I guess, not problems, but I guess things that people say about the show is that there weren't that many, I guess, people of color on the show. Was that, like, behind the scenes? Was that something that was ever discussed? Was that something that was ever brought up or realized, or is it one of those things that, like, nowadays, you know, given the time period that we're in, that people are starting to realize that? Because there were a lot of TV shows that were the same, like, in that regard. And, you know, admittedly, like, being a black man, like, it's quite often, like, I often obviously want to see, you know, diversity, obviously, right? I want to see people like me on there. But one of the common things that I read about Gilmore Girls and why it may not have been popular in black neighborhoods is, you know, for that reason. Is that something that was ever discussed, like, at least on like, from what you saw?
I don't know that it was discussed. I mean, I think personally they said it in Connecticut and in a very specific part of Connecticut. And I don't know that there's necessarily, especially at that point in time, that demographic was living there. And I think that that's really where the only people that you would see that would come in that would be new would be tourists. So, I mean, you could have an occasional, but, you know, the only representative was Michelle. And, you know, he's French. He's not even really like community. But I mean, I don't know. It's hard. It's funny because our costume designer, Brenda, she's black. And I just remember there's a photograph I took of her. One day we had like quite a few, like during different parts of the seasons, we'd have different people. My friend Carl worked on the show. And then we had a few other guys that worked on the show. And one day she's like, Val, come here. Let's get all the black people together. And so we took a picture of all the black crew members working on this one day. And she was so excited. And it's hard because representation, it's now starting to be a thing where you're like, we got to include more people. And we do. We really, really do. And when we did the reboot, they actually did put more ethnic people in the background. You could see a lot more diversity. And I don't know if I don't know where that memo came from because it's kind of not in where I'm at. But the one thing when we did the reboot, one thing that I do remember as a costumer, there would be some people who would come and, like, if they had like this one guy, he had like the studs, like the diamond studs in his ear.
Kind of,
and I was like, you know, if you're in Connecticut, that probably wouldn't be the look that you'd have. I go, can you please take those out? And so, you know, we would, you know, you have to, if you're going to be in that part of the world, you have to fit the part of whatever that person that would be in that part of the world to look like. So we would make sure that they would look what they would look like if they were a Connecticut kind of guy. But,
Do you want to see a season 2 of A Year in the Life?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like the way that the A Year in the Life was received by a lot of the fans, I feel like you're never going to live up to expectations. Sure. And I feel like, what more do you want? Do you want to bring back all the characters? Because I'll tell you, it was hard enough as it was. I know you haven't seen it
to get those,
but
it's
hard to recreate something that from scratch because there's so many parameters. Like they only had the backlot for a certain period of time, which meant they could only write certain scenes at certain times. And because we had weather and different things, it wasn't like we could just recreate or get Melissa McCarthy to come in on every day of the week. You're not going to have
she might be a little busy nowadays. Busy.
It's like you have actors' contracts to deal with, you have storylines. And I mean, I know that a lot of the problems that people had was the storyline and Rory wouldn't have done this. But the thing is, that's what Amy saw. And from very beginning of this show was always about what Amy's vision is. It's always Amy's vision. And obviously season 7, which you haven't seen yet, it's not Amy's vision. And so she had
because they had different writers, right? They had different writers that year, and Amy and her husband were not part of it.
Yeah, their contract was not renewed, and so they had other writers the two writers that were on season 7 were part of the writers' room on season 6, but and then they hired a bunch more writers, and it was I gotta say season 7 was my favorite to work on. But not from the standpoint of quality production. It was my favorite because it was relaxed. Man, we shot 10-hour days. We were going home. Like, it was easy peasy. It was so easy, but it wasn't like the same. The words weren't the same. The character development wasn't the same. And, it's hard. It's hard to know what. I don't think that having a season 2 is going to fulfill any fans' real true desire.
The story's been told, right? Like there's other avenues to go, but the story pretty much more or less has been told, and I guess it just comes from people just wanting to just falling in love with these characters and being emotionally attached to these characters and wanting to see them, which I think is a testament to the work that Amy has done and the actors have done and people like you have done. I think it's just a testament to all of that. And I'm just incredibly thankful that everybody in that world, which I had no idea even really existed, has just welcomed me. And now look at me now. I'm sitting here interviewing the head costumer. Well, I guess
not head, but
designer, but just
right.
Yeah, but somebody that played a very integral part of a show that people love, and I think that's really, really cool. And one of the last things I want to talk to you about here real quick is you I know you said you've been taking a little break and you've been focusing a lot on your Valerie's cat ice cream. I want to make sure I say it right.
Yeah,
and which I know we can see it. We can see it in the background too. Your logo and all of that. I love ice cream. I'm a big fan, so I can't wait to one day try
some of
this ice cream. I'm a huge ice cream fan. How did that even start? How did that come to be?
Well, about right before Gilmore, I started making ice cream. We started having potlucks. And then I went to FanFest after a year in the life. And the first year, I didn't make ice cream. I didn't do anything crazy. But the second year, the people that created the festival were like, hey, Valerie, you really should write a book. You should bring something to sell at the festival because I know people will buy it and we can't pay you any money. And I was like, oh, no, it's fine. I just love coming because I want to see all my friends, right? And I said, but you know what? I make ice cream and I make it for fun. And I said, what if we make ice cream at the festival? So they bought a hand crank machine and they put me in a room and all the fans that were at FanFest that wanted to came to my little room and we cranked ice cream. And I told stories and they asked me questions about the show, or they would just half the time people would come up and go, Luke and Lorelai are my favorite thing in the world. They were just testimonials and start crying. And I was like, oh my God, guys, this is great. Do you have a question about costumes? They're like, no, but I love you. And I was like, okay, great. And so they helped churn. We made ice cream. And then the next year, Jenny was like, we're doing this again. She goes, we're really serious. You should write a book. And I was like, she's like, you could tell stories and then you can put recipes in there. And I was like, okay, let me think about it. Now, I don't know if you've seen inside the book. I mean, I think you have because you're following me on TikTok. But basically, it's a storybook that's handwritten. And then it's got recipes. And so this one, a lot of them in the book are dedicated to Gilmore Girls just because I wrote it for Gilmore Girls.
Sure.
But so this is a recipe. This is the story for Ed Herman.
Yeah.
And so it has a lot of little elements of, it's not really about the show, but this one says, the late Edward Herman, a.k.a. Richard Gilmore on Gilmore Girls, was a collector of cars, history, art, memorabilia, and friends. I invited Ed to one of our parties when Colin showed him his collection of trains, microphones, and radios. Ed picked this American flyer up and said, I had this train when I was a little boy. Colin said, take it. It's yours. It's just collecting dust. Ed acquired an old train and a new friend for his collection that day. He would often stop by out of the blue, and not just to sample the newest flavor of ice cream. And I brought this book with me to Connecticut, and his daughters and his wife signed it.
Oh my gosh.
And then
the
way the recipes are is they're all graphic. So you follow them, you go to the top, go down, follow them. And I was working on Timeless when I wrote the book. And this is a funny fan.
That was on NBC, story. Right? I remember that show on NBC.
Yeah, and so I'm working on Timeless, and I'm writing it on my computer, and I'm drawing a picture of Phantom of the Opera, which just has to do with the story that I was telling. And one of the actors comes up to me and he's like, did you just draw a picture of Phantom of the Opera? And I'm like, yeah. It's for my, and I'm about to say ice cream cookbook. And I went, I'll explain it to you after the next take. So I said, yeah, I worked on Gilmore Girls and I'm writing, and he said, Gilmore Girls. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I'm the biggest fan. Now this is a dude. He's the number 2. He played Wyatt on the show, Matt Lanter. Okay. And he goes, my wife got me into watching Gilmore Girls when we first started dating. She would send back, and I'm the hugest fan. And so I was writing this book when I was working on Timeless, and I love that story because it's like, it's so funny. You never know who's a Gilmore fan. They're all over the place.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And also ice cream, man. So many people, I love, like, I'll be on a set. I'll bring ice cream to set whenever I'm working.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, hey, you like ice cream? And they're like, I love ice cream. Like, they don't know I have ice cream on me. They literally don't. Right. I have it in like this little purse with a little thermos. And I'm like, wait, are you allergic to anything? And they're like, no. And they're like, do you want to try something? I'm like, sure. And I'll pull out of my purse like.
Do you come at it like a drug deal? Is that?
100%, man, 100%. And this is how I used to give ice cream out. But what happened was, because of the pandemic, I'm not seeing anybody. There's no people around.
Right.
And so I opened up. I don't know if you saw on my TikTok, but I have like these little ice cream social distances that I do. I took the front. Awesome. We got this big window in our porch, and there's two little side windows. And I took these like little pill containers, and I put a different flavor in each one, and I push out the window, and then they sit on that side and they're eating their ice cream, and we're just sitting there having a chat. And over pandemic, just in 2020, we saw about 100 people on our front porch. And
oh my goodness,
it was amazing because the people that I saw, especially, like, bring yourself to last year where you hadn't seen anybody.
Sure.
People have come to the front porch. They get to, 1, have ice cream. 2, see another human being without a mask on.
Yeah.
And we could be like this close, and sometimes we'd like touch our hands through the glass. And, man, the range of conversations I got to have last year with people who I normally, would maybe, if they came to one of the parties, maybe we'd get to chat for like 5 minutes. No, we're sitting for like 2 hours having a conversation. And it was just so lovely. Like in my freezer right now, I have about, around 40, 45 flavors just in the freezer because I've been making ice cream all hiatus. So
you're saying I need to come out to LA right now and get some of the ice cream that is in your freezer. I will book my flight right now. I'm on my way. Can I crash on your couch?
We do have a spare bedroom. In fact, that's actually a bed that pops down.
Oh, nice. I love it. I'm so happy that we got to sit and chat this. This warmed my heart. This warmed my spirit. And like I said, I would have never guessed that I would be immersed in this world of Gilmore Girls. It has never crossed my mind because there's things that I find myself immersed in, like, musical theater, roller coasters. I study theme parks, and writing. Like I love writing and all of that. And like to now be immersed into this new Stars Hollow world, and to be accepted and to meet really really cool people like you. And I've gotten to talk to Adam Wiley. He's going to be a guest one day soon as well. Just to kind of sit and chat with these people, and like I don't know, it's just really cool. It's just really cool to chat with all of you, and I'm incredibly blessed, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. How can people get your book? The book is titled "The Story and Recipes of Valerie's Cat Ice Cream." Where can people go get that if they want?
The only place they can get it is my website, because I did a self-printing. I self-published.
Oh, wow.
And
cool.
I only printed out 1,500 books, and I'm down to my last 85. And my website it's www.valeriescatIscream, and not I like me, but I like eyeball.
Right.
Eyeball, scream like you're screaming for your life, and .com, and just go to the store button. But yeah, it's $20, and I've been the last 85 books, or probably about the last 100. I've been drawing special drawings on it because of pandemic. It's so much harder to sell a book, and
sure.
But it's been fun. So if you check out my TikTok or my Instagram or my Facebook pages, Valerie's Ice Cream Shop, which by the way, Keiko Agena, who played Lane. Her and my friend Jenny Yang, who's a comedian, they created my Facebook page at a party. They're literally at one of my parties, and they're like, "Val, you got a Facebook page for your business?" And I'm like, "No," and I don't even have a business. I'm just like making ice cream and giving it to you guys. They're like, "No, you need this." And so I started putting my recipes down, which was another reason why this book ended up happening. It was just so easy. And you said at the very beginning, you're like 130 recipes. By this point in time, I've made at least 170, because the next book, which I've been working on, is going to have 50 more recipes in it. But I'm not going to be able to produce the next book until this one is done. So hopefully this will help.
Right. That's so exciting, and I can't wait to try some. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Oh my God, you gotta come.
I'll be out in LA at some point this summer. Just because I like to visit LA, because I have friends out there, and I will definitely let you know when I'm out there. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I also, to everybody listening, I will also put her website and her, title, her screen names and stuff like that. I'll put that down below, and also in the show notes as well. So you can just simply click on it. It's going to lead you straight to wherever you want to go. Valerie, thank you so much.
Thank you for
sitting with me. Yeah, and to everybody else, if you enjoyed listening to this, you can follow me on all your favorite social media platforms at The Vibe with Ky. You can also visit my official website, thevibewithky.com, where I'm always posting things that'll help you do good, feel good, be good, and live a good life full of good vibes. With that said, my friends, thank you so much for listening. As always, God bless and good vibes. Bye.